Sarah made a decision that would have seemed insane to any rational observer. Instead of trying to stop the Kethvar self-destruct sequence, she was going to help it along. Jackson, Williams, Martinez, emergency extraction positions. Now, her team moved with practiced efficiency, taking cover behind the blast shields that surrounded the docking bay's emergency escape pods. Sarah remained in the open, her weapon trained on the Kethvar positions. War leader, you have exactly 90 seconds to get your people back to your ship before I detonate the charges on your docking clamps. You will destroy us all. Not all of us, Sarah said calmly. My people are in escape pods designed to survive ship explosions. Your people are standing in a docking bay that's about to become the center of a very large fireball. The clicking communication from the Kethvar positions became frantic. Sarah could see movement as the aliens began falling back toward their ship's airlock. They were abandoning their positions, choosing the possibility of survival over the certainty of death. But Sarah wasn't done. Dr. Martinez, do you still have access to their ship's computer systems? Yes, but the connection is degrading as they shut down external systems. Can you download their complete database? Everything they have on the species they've eliminated? I'm trying, but there's too much data. I need more time. Sarah looked at the countdown timer. 60 seconds until the human fleet arrived. 45 seconds until the Kethvar self-destruct activated. 30 seconds until the cold became lethal. She was cutting it close, but she had one last card to play. War leader, I'm transmitting your ship's location and self-destruct sequence to my fleet. When you explode, they'll recover your ship's wreckage and analyze every piece of technology you're carrying. Your secrets will become human secrets. That is impossible. Our self-destruct will leave no recoverable materials. Sarah smiled coldly. You really don't understand humans, do you? We've been salvaging wrecked ships for centuries. We've learned to extract intelligence from scattered debris, partially melted computer cores, even individual component fragments. Your self-destruct will destroy your ship, but it won't destroy our ability to learn from what's left. She could see the human fleet approaching on her helmet display now. 3 massive warships dropping out of faster-than-light travel with perfect precision. The Defiance was a kilometer-long monster of armor and weapons, its hull scarred from dozens of battles. The sight of it filled Sarah with fierce pride. And here's the best part, she continued. Once we reverse engineer your technology, we're going to use it to track down the rest of your people. Every Kethvar in the galaxy is going to learn what happens when you threaten humanity. The war leader's response was barely audible over the sound of his people retreating to their ship. You cannot. Our technology is beyond your comprehension. Is it? We've already cracked your computer systems, disrupted your weapons, and trapped your ship. Face it, war leader. Your people aren't as superior as you thought. Dr. Martinez looked up from his scanner, excitement visible even through his exhaustion. Commander, I'm getting it. Complete database download including records of all 47 extinct species, their histories, their technologies, even their final transmission logs. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. The final transmission logs would be the last desperate messages sent by dying civilizations as the Kethvar systematically exterminated them. Those voices needed to be heard, their stories preserved, their deaths avenged. The Kethvar ship suddenly lurched as the aliens activated their emergency separation protocols. The docking clamps holding them to the station began to strain under competing forces as the ship's engines fought against the magnetic containment field. Williams, release the magnetic field on my mark, Sarah ordered. Commander, if I do that while their engines are at full power, they'll tear away from the station so fast it could damage our hull. That's the idea. Jackson, are your charges ready? Locked and loaded, Commander. Sarah watched as the last of the Kethvar boarding party disappeared into their ship's airlock. The war leader's voice came over the comm one final time, filled with something that might have been respect. You fight with honor, human. Your species will make worthy adversaries. We're not your adversaries anymore, Sarah replied. We're your nightmare. The human fleet was now close enough that she could see individual weapon ports glowing with building energy charges. Admiral Chen's voice crackled over the emergency comm system. Sarah, this is Fleet Command. We're reading massive energy signatures from the alien vessel. Are you clear for weapons free? Negative, sir. We're still attached to their ship, but I've got a plan. Sarah looked at her team, huddled in the escape pod blast shields, and felt a surge of pride. They had faced impossible odds and somehow managed to turn the tables on an enemy that had systematically destroyed dozens of other civilizations. Now it was time to finish the job. Williams released the magnetic field. Jackson, detonate charges in 3 seconds. Martinez, are you ready to transmit that data to the fleet? Ready, Commander. Do it. Mark. Williams released the magnetic containment field just as Jackson's charges exploded along the docking clamp assembly. The combined forces tore the Kethvar ship away from the station with tremendous violence, sending both vessels spinning away from each other. But Sarah had calculated the angles perfectly. As the alien ship spun away its damaged engines fighting for control, it tumbled directly into the Defiance's targeting solution. The battleship's main guns, each one capable of cracking a moon, locked onto the helpless vessel. The Kethvar ship's self-destruct activated just as the Defiance opened fire. The resulting explosion lit up space like a newborn star, visible even through the research station's damaged viewports. When the light faded, there was nothing left but expanding debris and the satisfaction of a mission completed. Admiral Chen's voice came over the comm system, filled with pride and relief. Outstanding work, Commander. Your beacon triggered the largest fleet mobilization in human history. 67 Kethvar ships have been located and are being engaged across 32 systems. Sarah felt herself smiling as the escape pod's life support systems kicked in, bringing blessed warmth and breathable air. What's the tactical situation, sir? The Kethvar fleet is in complete disarray without their command ship. Most of their vessels are surrendering rather than face destruction. It appears you've not only saved your crew, but potentially prevented the extinction of our entire species. Dr. Martinez held up his scanner, still clutched in his nearly frozen hands. And we've got complete records of 47 extinct civilizations. Their stories, their technologies, their final moments. The galaxy is going to learn what the Kethvar really are. Sarah leaned back against the escape pod's bulkhead, finally allowing herself to feel the exhaustion that threatened to overwhelm her. They had done the impossible. 5 humans on a research station had faced down an enemy that had successfully exterminated dozens of spacefaring civilizations. But as she looked out at the debris field that had once been a Kethvar warship, she knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was full of threats, full of species that might decide humanity needed to be eliminated. And when they made that mistake, they would learn the same lesson the Kethvar had learned too late. Humans were not prey. They were predators, and predators protected their pack with a ferocity that other species found impossible to understand. The Kethvar had pressed a gun to the head of a Navy SEAL, and learned why that was the last mistake any enemy of humanity would ever make. In the distance, Sarah could see the lights of the human fleet as it moved to secure the debris field and begin the long process of reverse engineering alien technology. Somewhere in that wreckage were the secrets that would make humanity stronger, faster, more dangerous than ever before. The Kethvar had wanted to study human adaptability. Now they would become part of it, their technology absorbed and improved upon, their tactics analyzed and countered, their very existence transformed into another step forward in humanity's relentless expansion across the stars. Sarah closed her eyes and allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Another threat to humanity had been eliminated. Another enemy had learned that threatening the human species was the fastest way to ensure your own extinction. And somewhere in the galaxy, other potential enemies were about to receive a very clear message. Humanity was no longer hiding in the shadows, hoping to avoid notice. They had announced their presence with the destruction of an entire enemy fleet, and the message was unmistakable. Earth's children were not victims. They were survivors, fighters, and apex predators who would defend their species with a determination that bordered on madness. The age of humanity had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The silence stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only 30 seconds. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears, amplified by the thin atmosphere and the adrenaline coursing through her system. Around the docking bay, her team maintained their positions despite the numbing cold. Their weapons trained on the Kethvar positions. "I require consultation with my officers," the war leader finally said. "You have 2 minutes," Sarah replied, checking the timer on Jackson's explosive charges. "After that, the decision gets made for you." The metallic clicking of Kethvar communication filled the air as the aliens debated their options. Sarah couldn't understand their language, but the tone was heated and urgent. She suspected the war leader was facing the same kind of impossible choice she had presented to her own people. sacrifice everything to complete the mission, or find another way to survive. Dr. Martinez appeared at her elbow, his scanner clutched in hands that were shaking from cold. Commander, I've downloaded their complete fleet deployment. 67 ships positioned near 32 human colonies. But there's something else. Their targeting priority list. Show me. Martinez activated his scanner's display, and Sarah saw a three-dimensional map of human space with dozens of red markers indicating Kethvar ship positions. But it was the target list that made her blood run cold. Earth was marked as Priority Alpha, the primary target for immediate destruction. Luna Station, Mars Colony, the shipyards at Titan, all marked for elimination in the first wave. They're not just planning to conquer us, she whispered. They're planning to erase every trace of human civilization. It gets worse, Martinez said grimly. According to these files, they've done this 47 times before. Each time they study a species for years, catalog their strengths and weaknesses, then launch a coordinated strike designed to eliminate every member of that species in a single operation. Sarah stared at the data, feeling a cold rage that had nothing to do with the station's failing life support. The Kethvar weren't just conquerors or even genocidal maniacs. They were systematic exterminators, approaching the destruction of entire civilizations like a scientific experiment. How long do they usually take to complete an extinction event? Based on their records, the longest was 18 standard hours. The shortest was 43 minutes. Sarah looked around at her team. These 5 humans who had somehow managed to disrupt a plan that had been in development for decades and had successfully eliminated dozens of other species. The irony wasn't lost on her. The Kethvar had studied humanity extensively, cataloged their military capabilities, analyzed their technology, but they had completely failed to understand the one thing that made humans truly dangerous. They never gave up. "Time's up, war leader," she called out. "What's your decision?" The response came immediately, and Sarah could hear resignation in the alien's voice. "We will provide access to our ship's computer systems in exchange for safe passage." "Not good enough," Sarah said flatly. "I want your personal authorization codes, complete fleet communication protocols, and a detailed explanation of your command structure. And I want your word that you'll call off the attack on human colonies." "Impossible. I do not have the authority to countermand fleet operations." "Then get someone who does." There was another burst of clicking communication from the Kethvar positions, more urgent this time. Sarah suspected they were trying to contact their fleet, only to discover that the station's jamming systems were still active. The aliens were truly trapped, cut off from their chain of command and facing a choice between cooperation and mutual destruction. Lieutenant Jackson moved to her position, his breath visible in the frigid air. "Commander, we've got incoming on long-range sensors. 3 ships approaching fast. Looks like human signatures." Sarah felt a surge of relief mixed with concern. Help was arriving earlier than expected, but 3 ships suggested something more than a routine response to her distress beacon. "What class vessels?" "1 destroyer, 1 heavy cruiser, and something big." "Really big?" "IFF identifies it as the battleship Defiance." Sarah's eyes widened. The Defiance was the flagship of the Outer Rim Fleet, a massive warship that carried enough firepower to level a planet. If Admiral Chen had dispatched the Defiance in response to her beacon, it meant Human Fleet Command was taking the Kethvar threat very seriously indeed. "Williams, can you restore communications long enough to contact the incoming fleet?" "Working on it," Williams replied through chattering teeth. "I can give you maybe 30 seconds of clear transmission before the power drain shuts us down completely." "Do it." The comm system crackled to life, filled with static and interference. "This is Commander Sarah Chen aboard the research station Endeavour. Kethvar boarding party captured, enemy fleet deployment data acquired. Recommend immediate fleet-wide alert status." Admiral Chen's voice cut through the static, clear and commanding. "Sarah, this is your father. We've received your beacon and deployed the entire Outer Rim Fleet. What's your tactical situation?" Sarah smiled despite the cold. Admiral Marcus Chen was legendary throughout the human fleet, a man who had never lost a battle and never left a soldier behind. Having him respond personally meant that humanity was about to unleash everything it had against the Kethvar threat. 67 enemy vessels positioned near 32 colonies, sir. Complete extinction protocol planned, but their command ship is locked to my station. We have their operational plans and can disrupt their coordination. Understood. Maintain position and prepare for extraction. Chen out. The comm system died as the last of the station's power was diverted to maintaining the magnetic field holding the Kethvar ship. But Sarah felt a warmth that had nothing to do with temperature. The cavalry was coming, and it was coming in force. War leader, she called out. You've got about 6 minutes before 3 human warships arrive, including a battleship that carries enough firepower to turn your ship into elementary particles. I strongly suggest you start being more cooperative. The alien's response was immediate and desperate. I am authorized to provide our ship's computer access and tactical information in exchange for protection from your fleet. Sarah almost laughed. The Kethvar had gone from threatening to exterminate humanity to begging for protection in the span of a few hours. But she wasn't feeling generous. These aliens had systematically murdered 47 entire civilizations, and they had been planning to do the same to humanity. Protection? After what you've done? After what you were planning to do? Sarah's voice carried all the anger and disgust she felt. You've committed genocide on an industrial scale. You were planning to murder every human in the galaxy, including children. And now you want protection? We can provide valuable intelligence about other threats in this galactic sector. Species that pose genuine dangers to your expansion. The only threat in this sector is you. Dr. Martinez looked up from his scanner, his face grim. Commander, I'm detecting massive energy signatures from the Kethvar ship. They're powering up their self-destruct systems. Sarah felt her heart sink. Of course they were. The Kethvar would rather destroy their ship and all its intelligence than let it fall into human hands. It was a logical move from their perspective, but it would also eliminate any chance of learning more about their technology or preventing future attacks. War leader, shut down your self-destruct systems immediately. Negative. If we cannot complete our mission, we will ensure that our technology does not fall into primitive hands. Sarah looked at the timer on Jackson's charges. 4 minutes until the human fleet arrived. 3 minutes until the Kethvar ship's self-destruct activated, and maybe 2 minutes before the cold killed them all. She was running out of time and options, but she was still thinking like a human, and humans, as the Kethvar were about to learn, were very good at finding solutions that other species would never consider. The cold was becoming serious now. Sarah could see ice crystals forming on the metal surfaces around her, and each breath sent a visible puff of vapor into the rapidly thinning air. The Kethvar were apparently just as affected by the environmental conditions as humans, because she could hear their clicking communications becoming more frantic. War leader, she called out, her voice now echoing strangely in the thinning atmosphere. You have about 15 minutes to make a decision. After that, we're all going to freeze to death together. The response came quicker this time, and Sarah could hear something new in the alien's voice. Uncertainty. Your willingness to die accomplishes nothing. Even if you delay us here, our fleet will proceed with the operation. Will it? Dr. Martinez had been working frantically at his scanner, and now he looked up with a grim smile. Commander, I'm into their tactical network. Their fleet isn't autonomous. It's operating under centralized command from this ship. Sarah felt a surge of hope mixed with renewed determination. If the Kethvar fleet was dependent on centralized coordination, then keeping this ship locked down wouldn't just delay their mission, it would cripple it entirely. Hear that, war leader? Your entire invasion depends on you getting back to your fleet, but you're not going anywhere while your ship is welded to my station. Lieutenant Jackson's voice crackled over the comm system from somewhere deep in the station's maintenance tunnels. Commander, I've reached the armory. We've got pulse rifles, plasma charges, and something really interesting. Define interesting, Lieutenant. Experimental gravitational disruptor warheads. According to the manifest, they're designed for asteroid mining, but the technical specifications suggest they could do some serious damage to a ship's structural integrity. Sarah grinned despite the growing cold. Human ingenuity at its finest, turning mining equipment into weapons when the situation demanded it. Can you get them to the docking bay? Already on my way. Ida, 3 minutes. The war leader's voice cut through their conversation. Your weapons cannot penetrate our hull armor. Maybe not, Sarah admitted. But they don't have to. All they have to do is destabilize the magnetic field holding your ship to the station, and then physics takes over. She could hear more urgent clicking from the Kethvar positions. They were finally beginning to understand their predicament. If the humans destabilized the magnetic field while their engines were locked in position, the resulting explosive decompression would tear their ship apart. You would destroy your own station, the war leader protested. To stop a genocide? Absolutely. Sarah checked her weapon's power level again. The cold was affecting the battery life, but she still had enough charge for several minutes of combat. But here's what I don't understand, war leader. Your people are researchers, right? Scientists and scholars studying the galaxy species? Among other things, yes. Then you should understand the concept of adaptation through selective pressure. Every species that has tried to exterminate humanity has ended up making us stronger. The Xerox Empire gave us advanced metallurgy when we reverse-engineered their hull plating. The Hegemony War taught us quantum tunneling technology. Even pirate raids have contributed to our defensive capabilities. Sarah moved to a new position, using the growing patches of ice as camouflage. The Kethvar thermal sensors would have trouble tracking her movement in the rapidly cooling environment. What do you think will happen if you attack every human colony simultaneously? Do you really think we'll just lie down and die? Your scattered colonies cannot coordinate an effective defense. You keep saying that, but you're wrong. You see us as scattered because you don't understand how humans think. We're not scattered. We're distributed. Every colony, every outpost, every research station is connected to the others through more than just communication networks. Dr. Martinez had managed to establish a direct link to the Kethvar ship's computer systems, and his scanner was now downloading massive amounts of data. Commander, I'm seeing their complete battle plans. Target lists, timetables, fleet positions, everything. But there's something else here. Something about other species. What kind of other species? The Kethvar haven't just been studying humans. They've been cataloging and eliminating species across this entire galactic sector. Over the past 1,000 years, they've been responsible for the extinction of dozens of spacefaring civilizations. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. The Kethvar weren't just planning to commit genocide against humanity. They were serial exterminators, systematically cleansing the galaxy of any species they deemed threatening to their vision of order. War leader, she called out, her voice carrying a new edge of anger. How many civilizations have you destroyed? The silence stretched for several seconds before the alien replied. 47 species have been eliminated over the past millennium. Each posed a threat to galactic stability. Galactic stability according to who? You? We maintain the natural order. We prevent chaos. Sarah laughed, a sound that came out as a harsh bark in the thin air. You're not maintaining order. You're committing genocide on an industrial scale. You're the chaos. Lieutenant Jackson appeared in the docking bay carrying a case of the experimental warheads. His face was pale from cold and exertion, but his eyes were bright with determination. Commander, these are rigged and ready. Where do you want them? Sarah studied the tactical situation. The Kethvar ship was locked to the station at multiple points, but the primary connection was the docking clamp assembly. If they could destabilize that connection while the magnetic field was active, the resulting forces would tear both vessels apart, but they would also ensure that the Kethvar fleet lost its command and control center. Without their war leader's ship to coordinate the attack, the invasion would collapse into chaos. 67 ships scattered across human space without centralized command would be picked off one by human defense forces. Set the charges on the docking clamp supports, she ordered, but don't activate them yet. I want to give our friend one more chance to be reasonable. Williams looked up from her control console, her fingers blue with cold. Commander, the Hartford is transmitting. They'll be here in 12 minutes. 12 minutes. Sarah looked around the docking bay at her team, all of them slowly freezing to death in service of a mission that might save billions of human lives. They had come this far through determination, training, and sheer bloody-minded stubbornness. They could last 12 more minutes. War leader Zethkar, she called out one final time. The human destroyer Hartford will arrive in 12 minutes. When it does, it will find your ship locked to our station, your boarding party captured or dead, and your fleet's operational plans in human hands. You can prevent that by ordering your people to surrender and providing us with complete access to your ship's computers. And if I refuse? Sarah looked at Lieutenant Jackson, who nodded grimly and activated the timer on the gravitational disruptor warheads. Then in 12 minutes, there's going to be a very large explosion. And humanity is going to learn everything we need to know about your technology from the wreckage. The temperature in the station had dropped below freezing, and Sarah could feel her extremities beginning to numb. But she had survived worse conditions during Arctic warfare training, and she could see the same grim determination in her team's faces. They were prepared to die if necessary, but they were even more prepared to take their enemies with them. Your species' capacity for self-destruction is remarkable, the war leader said finally. It's not self-destruction, Sarah replied. It's sacrifice. And that's something your people apparently don't understand. We're willing to die to protect something larger than ourselves. That's what makes us apex predators, war leader. Not our weapons or our technology. Our willingness to pay any price to protect our pack. The aliens' response would determine whether they all died heroes or lived to see the Kethvar threat ended forever. The weapons fire stopped abruptly. Sarah could hear the metallic clicking of Kethvar communication, rapid and urgent. After a moment, a voice responded in heavily accented English. This is War Leader Zethkar of the Kethvar Expeditionary Force. What proposal do you offer, human? Sarah smiled grimly. So they had a whole military hierarchy, not just researchers. That confirmed her suspicions about their true intentions. Simple. Your people withdraw to your ship and I'll allow you to leave peacefully. The alien's response was immediate and predictable. You are in no position to dictate terms. Your station is defenseless, your weapons are inferior, and you are outnumbered. Am I? Sarah gestured to Jackson, who nodded and pressed a series of controls on his portable command unit. Throughout the station, blast doors began sealing, cutting off the Kethvar retreat routes. At the same time, Williams managed to activate the improvised magnetic containment field, effectively welding the alien ship to the station's docking port. What have you done? The war leader's voice carried a note of something that might have been concern. I've changed the tactical situation, Sarah replied calmly. Your ship is now locked to our station. If you use your heavy weapons to break free, you'll destroy your boarding party. If you try to force your way back to your ship, you'll have to fight through sealed bulkheads and emergency force fields. And if you simply wait, my reinforcements will arrive in 35 minutes. Dr. Martinez appeared at her shoulder, his scanner still in hand. Commander, I've managed to tap into their ship's external sensors. The good news is I can see their fleet deployment. The bad news is it's worse than we thought. How much worse? 67 ships, not 40. And they're not just positioned around this system. They've got vessels positioned near every major human colony within 50 light years. This isn't reconnaissance. It's the opening move of a coordinated invasion. Sarah felt her blood turn to ice. 67 ships with the firepower to devastate planetary surfaces, positioned to strike at the heart of human civilization. The beacon she had activated wouldn't just bring rescue. It would trigger the largest military mobilization in human history. Can you access their targeting data? Working on it. But Commander, there's something else. I'm detecting massive energy signatures from their ships. They're not just carrying conventional weapons. These readings suggest they have planet killers. Sarah's training had covered planetary bombardment scenarios, but the reality of facing an enemy with the power to destroy entire worlds was something else entirely. The Kethvar weren't just planning to defeat humanity. They were planning to erase it completely. War Leader Zethkar, she called out. I think we need to discuss the situation more thoroughly. There is nothing to discuss. Your species will be eliminated. It is simply a matter of efficiency. You're making the same mistake everyone who tries to fight humans makes, Sarah said, settling into cover and checking her weapon's charge level. You think this is about efficiency. But for humans, this isn't a military operation. It's personal. She could hear movement in the corridors beyond the docking bay. The Kethvar were trying to find alternative routes back to their ship, but the station's emergency protocols were designed by humans who understood the importance of controlling access points during a crisis. Your emotional responses are irrelevant, the war leader replied. Logic and superior technology will prevail. Will they? Let me tell you something about human military doctrine. When we're facing extinction, we don't fight to win. We fight to make sure our enemies pay such a high price for victory that they never want to fight us again. Sarah activated her helmet's tactical display and began marking enemy positions for her team. The Kethvar were good soldiers, but they were fighting on a human-designed station with human-built systems against humans who had trained for exactly this type of scenario. Jackson, can you reach the armory? Negative, Commander. They've got the main corridor locked down with overlapping fields of fire. Sarah studied the station's layout on her display. The research station had been built with multiple redundant systems, including service tunnels that most alien boarding parties never discovered. What about the maintenance shafts? Checking. Yes, I can reach the armory through the ventilation system. It'll take about 10 minutes. Do it. Williams, how long can you keep their ship locked down? The magnetic field is stable, but if they really want to break free, they can overload their engines and tear away from the docking port. It would damage their ship, but not critically. Sarah nodded. The Kethavar were trapped, but not helplessly so. They would eventually find a way to escape, which meant she had to make every minute count. Martinez, any luck with their computer systems? I'm in their external sensors, but their main database is heavily encrypted. I need more time to break through their security protocols. Time was the one thing they didn't have. Sarah could hear the distinctive whine of Kethavar weapons powering up for another assault. They were preparing to fight their way out, which meant the standoff was about to become a very ugly battle. Commander, Williams called from her position at the control console. I'm detecting energy buildup in their ship's engines. They're preparing to break free. Sarah made a decision that went against every instinct of self-preservation she had. Can you route power from the station's reactor directly into the magnetic containment field? Yes, but that would overload the entire power grid. We'd lose life support, artificial gravity, everything. Do it. Commander, that's a death sentence. Without life support, we have maybe 20 minutes of air. Sarah smiled coldly. Then we'd better make them count. The Hartford will be here in 30 minutes. All we have to do is survive 20 minutes longer than our enemies. Williams stared at her for a moment, then nodded grimly. Understood, Commander. Rerouting reactor output to magnetic containment in 3, 2, 1. The station shuddered as massive amounts of energy flowed into the improvised tractor beam. Emergency lights flickered and died, replaced by the eerie red glow of backup power. The artificial gravity fluctuated, making everyone grab for handholds as their inner ears struggled to adapt. But the effect on the Kethavar ship was immediate and dramatic. The alien vessel groaned audibly as the magnetic field increased exponentially, its hull plates buckling under forces they weren't designed to withstand. Warning sirens began blaring from the ship's interior. War Leader Zethkar, Sarah called out. Your ship is now locked to this station with enough force to crush your hull if you try to break free. Your boarding party is trapped on a station that's about to lose life support, and in 28 minutes a human destroyer is going to arrive and find you helpless. The silence stretched for nearly a minute before the alien responded. What do you want? Information. Full access to your fleet's deployment plans, target lists, and timetables. In exchange, I'll release your ship and allow you to withdraw before my reinforcements arrive. Impossible. That information is classified at the highest levels. Sarah checked her weapon's power level and settled into a more comfortable firing position. Then I guess we're all going to die together. But here's the thing about humans, War Leader. We're really good at making sure our enemies die first. The temperature in the station was already beginning to drop as the life support systems shut down. Sarah could see her breath in the air, and she knew they had minutes, not hours, before the cold became lethal. But she also knew that the Kethavar, despite their advanced technology, were just as vulnerable to the laws of physics as anyone else. Your species' tendency toward self-destruction is well documented, the war leader said. You would truly kill yourself simply to deny us victory? Without hesitation, Sarah replied. But I'm hoping you're smarter than that. Because right now, you have a choice. You can die here with us, or you can live to fight another day. But if you choose to live, you're going to give me what I want. Dr. Martinez caught her eye and pointed to his scanner. He had managed to break through another layer of the alien ship's security systems. They were close to accessing the information they needed, but they were running out of time. Sarah could hear her own heartbeat in the growing silence of the station. In a few minutes, the choice would be taken away from all of them. The only question was whether the Kethavar valued their lives more than their military secrets. The silence in the research station stretched for exactly 3 heartbeats. Then Sarah moved. Years of combat training had taught her that the moment between realization and action was when enemies were most vulnerable. The Kethavar leader's 4 eyes were wide with sudden understanding, his grip on the plasma rifle loosening as his mind processed the implications of her words. That tiny window of hesitation was all Sarah needed. She threw herself sideways, the energy restraints finally giving way under the precise pressure she had been applying for the past 10 minutes. The plasma bolt that should have vaporized her head instead scorched the air where she had been sitting, leaving the scent of ozone and burnt metal. Lieutenant Jackson moved like liquid shadow, his combat knife finding the gap between the nearest Kethavars, armor plates before the alien could even turn around. Dr. Martinez rolled behind a equipment console and activated the station's emergency systems. plunging the area into strobing red light that disrupted the aliens' enhanced vision. The research station erupted into controlled chaos. Sarah's team moved with the practiced precision of people who had trained together for years, each member knowing exactly where the others would be and what they would do. The Kethvar, for all their technological superiority, had never faced humans in close-quarters combat. Sarah grabbed a plasma torch from a nearby workstation and activated it just as another Kethvar swung an energy weapon toward her. The torch's beam sliced through the alien's weapon arm, and the creature's scream sounded like grinding metal mixed with steam. She rolled under its retaliatory strike and came up behind it, the torch's superheated beam finding the weak point at the base of its skull. "Martinez, how long until backup arrives?" She shouted over the sound of weapons fire and alien death screams. "Beacon indicates nearest response vessel is the destroyer Hartford," Martinez called back, his fingers flying over his portable computer while he used the console for cover. "Estimated arrival time 47 minutes. Sarah ducked as another plasma bolt seared the air above her head. 47 minutes was a lifetime in combat, but it meant help was coming. More importantly, it meant the human fleet was mobilizing. The Kethvar had just kicked the largest hornet's nest in the galaxy. Lieutenant Jackson had commandeered a fallen alien's weapon and was using it with devastating efficiency. The Kethvar's own technology turned against them, their plasma rifles tearing through their supposedly impervious armor. "Commander, we've got movement on the alien ship. Looks like they're preparing to withdraw." Sarah wasn't surprised. The Kethvar were researchers, not warriors. They were used to overwhelming primitive species with superior technology, not fighting desperate humans who refused to die quietly. But she couldn't let them escape. Not when they had information about human defenses that could be used against other colonies. "Petty Officer Williams, what's the status on the station's defensive systems?" Williams, their systems specialist, was hunched over the main control panel, her hands moving in complex patterns as she tried to restore power to the weapons array. "Working on it, Commander. The aliens damaged the primary control circuits, but I think I can reroute through the backup systems." An explosion rocked the station as the Kethvar attempted to blast their way back to their ship. Sarah could see them retreating in good order, but they were leaving 3 of their own behind. The aliens fought efficiently, but without the desperate creativity that humans brought to combat. They followed established patterns which made them predictable. "Jackson, take Williams and try to get to the docking bay. If they get back to their ship, we lose any chance of learning about their technology." "What about you, Commander?" Sarah picked up a fallen Kethvar weapon, testing its weight and balance. The weapon was designed for larger hands, but she could make it work. "I'm going to give them something to think about." The remaining Kethvar had barricaded themselves behind an overturned table, using it as cover while they tried to establish communication with their ship. Sarah could hear their metallic clicking language growing more urgent as they realized their situation was deteriorating rapidly. She activated her helmet's translation program, one of the recent additions to human military equipment based on technology recovered from previous alien encounters. The clicks slowly resolved into words, though the meaning was still alien. "Extraction required immediately. Human resistance exceeds parameters. Recommend immediate termination of research project and withdrawal to safe distance." Sarah smiled grimly. They were learning what every enemy of humanity eventually learned. Humans were much more dangerous when cornered than when comfortable. The galaxy was about to get a very expensive education in human nature. Dr. Martinez appeared at her elbow, carrying what looked like a modified scanner. "Commander, I've been analyzing their technology. These aren't just researchers. Their ship is equipped with weapons that could devastate an entire planetary surface. How many ships do they have? Unknown, but based on the energy signatures I'm detecting, this vessel is part of a much larger fleet. I'm reading at least 40 distinct power signatures in the surrounding space, all cloaked." Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's damaged life support systems. 40 ships meant the Kethvar weren't just conducting research. They were preparing for a full-scale invasion of human space. The 17 ships they had destroyed were just reconnaissance. "Can you get more detailed scans? I need to access their ship's computer systems directly. If I can establish a connection, I might be able to download their fleet deployment data, maybe even their target list." Sarah looked toward the docking bay where Jackson and Williams were attempting to prevent the aliens' escape. She could hear the sound of weapons fire echoing through the station's corridors. punctuated by the distinctive whine of human pulse rifles and the heavier boom of Kethvar plasma weapons. "Do it. I'll buy you time." Sarah sprinted toward the docking bay, the stolen alien weapon feeling strange in her hands but functioning well enough. She had fought in enough battles to know that superior technology meant nothing if you couldn't keep your enemies from using their training and experience against you. The docking bay was a war zone. Jackson and Williams had managed to damage the Kethvar ship's docking clamps, preventing it from separating from the station. But the aliens had responded by bringing heavy weapons to bear. The bay's walls were scarred with plasma burns, and the air was thick with smoke and the ozone smell of discharged energy weapons. "Jackson, status report. We've got them pinned down, but they've called for reinforcements from their ship. I count at least 6 more hostiles incoming through their airlock." Sarah studied the tactical situation. The Kethvar ship was larger than the research station, its hull gleaming with the same metallic skin as its crew. Weapon ports along its sides were beginning to glow with building energy charges. If they decided to simply blast their way free, they could probably destroy the entire station, but that would mean abandoning their boarding party. And everything Sarah had observed suggested the Kethvar valued their people highly. It was a weakness she could exploit. "Williams, can you access the station's tractor beam systems?" "Tractor beams are offline, but I might be able to improvise something using the magnetic containment systems from the reactor core." "Do it. If we can keep their ship locked to the station, they can't use their heavy weapons without destroying their own people." Sarah moved to a better position, using the docking bay's support struts for cover. The Kethvar were advancing methodically, their plasma rifles laying down a withering field of fire that kept her team pinned down. But they were making the same mistake most technologically superior species made when fighting humans. They assumed that having better weapons meant they would automatically win. What they didn't understand was that humans had been fighting with inferior equipment for most of their history. They had learned to use terrain, tactics, and pure stubborn determination to overcome technological disadvantages. The Kethvar were about to get a very painful lesson in human ingenuity. Sarah activated her comm system and broadcast on all frequencies. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Human Research Vessel Endeavour. Any Kethvar forces listening, I have a proposal for you." The Kethvar leader's skin had turned a deep crimson, which Sarah's xenobiology training told her probably indicated anger or stress. Good. Angry enemies made mistakes, and she was counting on that. "Your beacon is irrelevant," the alien said, though his voice carried less certainty than before. "We will eliminate your species systematically. Your scattered colonies cannot coordinate a defense against our technology." Sarah laughed, a sound that echoed strangely in the research station's confined space. "You really don't understand humans at all, do you? You think we're just another species to be catalogued and eliminated, but you miss the most important thing about us. Which is, we're survivors. And survivors learn." The alien's 4 eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Sarah shifted slightly in her restraints, testing the bonds. They were energy-based, probably some kind of localized force field. Clever, but everything had weaknesses. "Tell me something. How many human ships have you destroyed?" 17 vessels over the past 6 standard months. The Kethvar replied with what sounded like pride. "All eliminated without survivors." "Wrong," Sarah said flatly. The alien's skin color shifted to a darker shade of red. "Impossible. Our sensors confirmed total destruction of each vessel. Your sensors confirmed that the ships exploded. They didn't confirm that everyone died." Sarah could see Lieutenant Jackson slowly working at his own restraints, using the distraction of her conversation to mask his movements. Humans are really good at pretending to be dead. It's a survival mechanism we picked up from some very unpleasant wars. Dr. Martinez caught her eye and nodded slightly. He had managed to slip one hand completely free and was now working on the other. Around the station, the rest of her team was following their lead, using techniques learned in resistance training to escape their bonds. Even if some survived, the Kethvar leader said, they could not have escaped our detection. "Escape pods," Sarah explained patiently. "Every human vessel carries them. Small, shielded, designed to be nearly invisible to most sensor arrays. When you destroy a ship, the pods automatically jettison and go into stealth mode. The survivors wait until you leave, then make their way to the nearest human outpost." The alien's skin was now cycling rapidly between red and purple. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Check your own records." How many escape pods did you recover from those 17 ships? There was a long pause. Sarah could practically see the alien accessing its ship's database. When it spoke again, its voice had lost much of its confidence. No escape pods were detected. Exactly. Because they weren't there to detect. They were already gone, carrying survivors and, more importantly, carrying data about your ships, your weapons, your tactics. Sarah leaned forward as much as her restraints would allow. Every attack you've made has been recorded, analyzed, and transmitted to the human military command. We know how you fight. We know your weaknesses. The Kethvar leader spun to face one of his subordinates. They began communicating in their own language. A series of metallic clicking sounds that reminded Sarah of machinery breaking down. She didn't understand the words, but their body language was clear enough. They were worried. Lieutenant Jackson had successfully freed one hand and was now working on his legs. Their standard operating procedure in hostage situations was clear. The ranking officer keeps the captors distracted while the team prepares for action. Sarah just had to keep talking. You want to know why humans are different from the other species you've studied? She continued. It's because we don't just survive, we adapt. Every time someone tries to kill us, we learn from it. We get better. We become harder to kill the next time. Your adaptability is impressive but ultimately futile, the alien replied. But Sarah could hear the uncertainty in its voice. Our technology is centuries ahead of yours. Maybe. But here's the thing about humans and technology. We're really good at stealing it. The Kethvar's four eyes focused on her with laser intensity. Explain, Sarah smiled. Those 17 ships you destroyed? Each one was equipped with scanning equipment designed specifically to analyze alien technology. Every shot you fired, every energy signature you produced, every piece of exotic matter you used, it was all recorded and transmitted in real time to our research facilities. She could see Dr. Martinez had almost freed his second hand. Around the station, her team was making steady progress on their restraints. The aliens had made the mistake of assuming that energy-based bonds were escape-proof, but human military training included techniques for disrupting various types of force fields. Right now, Sarah continued, there are human engineers studying your weapons, your shields, your propulsion systems. They're figuring out how to counter them, how to improve them, how to build better ones. That's what we do. We take what works and we make it better. The alien leader raised its weapon, pointing it directly at her face. Even if this is true, it will not save you or your species. We will simply accelerate our timeline. Instead of studying your colonies individually, we will launch a coordinated strike against all human worlds simultaneously. You can try, Sarah said calmly, but you'll fail. Your confidence is misplaced. No, it's based on experience. See, you're not the first species to decide that humans needed to be eliminated. The Xerak Empire tried it about 50 years ago. They had superior numbers, better weapons, more advanced technology. Sound familiar? The Kethvar's skin was now flashing between colors so rapidly it was almost hypnotic. What happened to them? They don't exist anymore. Sarah let that sink in for a moment before continuing. It wasn't that we were stronger or smarter or more advanced. It's that we refused to give up. Every world they attacked, we fought back. Every ship they destroyed, we built 2 more. Every weapon they used against us, we reverse-engineered and improved. By the end of the war, human technology had advanced by decades while theirs had stagnated. Dr. Martinez was now completely free of his restraints, but was pretending to still be bound. Around the station, several other team members had quietly escaped their bonds. Sarah could feel the tension in the air building as her people prepared for action. The Xerak made the same mistake you're making, she said. They thought that being technologically superior meant they would automatically win. But wars aren't won by the side with the best weapons. They're won by the side that wants victory more. And you believe humans want victory more than we do? Sarah's smile was cold as space itself. No, I know we need it more. The Xerak were conquerors. You're researchers. You both see war as a means to an end. But for humans, survival isn't a goal. It's an instinct. It's built into our DNA from millions of years of evolution on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. The alien leader was no longer just holding his weapon on her. He was backing toward the wall, his 4 eyes darting between Sarah and her team. Some primitive survival instinct was finally kicking in, warning him that something had changed in the room's dynamic. Your beacon will accomplish nothing, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. By the time your reinforcements arrive, we will be gone and you will be dead. Maybe, Sarah agreed. But that beacon isn't just calling for rescue. It's calling for war. And when humanity goes to war, we don't stop until we win. The alien's skin was now pure white, which Sarah suspected meant fear. Your species is too scattered, too divided. You cannot mount an effective defense against our fleet. That's where you're wrong again, Sarah said softly. Humans might fight among ourselves when times are good. But when we're threatened by an outside force, we unite in ways that other species find impossible to understand. Right now, every human colony, every fleet, every military installation is receiving the same message. Humanity is under attack. She could see Lieutenant Jackson slowly rising to his feet behind the aliens, moving with the silent precision of his special forces training. Dr. Martinez was carefully reaching for something in his equipment pack. The rest of her team was ready to move on her signal. And do you know what happens when you threaten all of humanity at once? Sarah asked, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. The Kethvar leader pressed the plasma rifle against her forehead. Tell me. Sarah looked directly into those 4 glowing eyes and smiled one last time. You find out why apex predators evolved on Earth. Commander Sarah Chen had seen death before. She had faced it in the icy waters of the Arctic Ocean, in the burning sands of distant planets, and in the cold vacuum of space. But never like this. Never with her hands bound behind her back and a plasma rifle pressed against her temple while her crew lay unconscious around her. The alien ship had appeared without warning 3 hours ago. Their sleek vessel had simply materialized beside the human research station Endeavour, cutting through their shields like they were made of paper. Sarah's team hadn't even had time to send a distress signal before the boarding party arrived. The creatures that now held them captive were unlike anything in the galactic database. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in what looked like living metal that shifted and flowed with each movement. Their faces were angular, almost geometric, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern that glowed with an eerie blue light. They called themselves the Kethvar, and they spoke perfect English, which somehow made everything worse. Your species fascinates us, human, the lead Kethvar said, his voice like grinding metal. So small, so fragile, yet you spread across the stars like a plague. Tell us, what makes you think you deserve to live? Sarah kept her breathing steady, her training taking over. She had graduated top of her class from the Naval Special Warfare Command, had served 3 tours in the Outer Rim conflicts, and had led more rescue missions than she could count. The aliens had made one critical mistake. They assumed that because she was human, she was weak. I don't know what you want, Sarah said calmly, but killing us won't get it for you. The Kethvar leader tilted his head, studying her with those strange diamond eyes. Killing you is not our primary objective, though it may become necessary. We are researchers, you see. We study species before we decide their fate. Your kind has been problematic. Around the research station, Sarah could see her team slowly regaining consciousness. Dr. Martinez, their xenobiologist, was trying to sit up despite the restraints. Lieutenant Jackson, her second in command, caught her eye for just a moment before looking away. Good. He was awake and alert. Problematic how? Sarah asked, keeping the alien's attention on her. You do not follow the natural order, the creature replied. Most species develop along predictable paths. They achieve spaceflight, expand to a few nearby systems, then either stagnate or destroy themselves. Your species does neither. You adapt. You survive. You grow stronger with each challenge. The alien began pacing around her, its metal skin shifting colors as it moved. In the past 1,000 cycles, we have cataloged 47 species that achieved interstellar travel. 43 have gone extinct. 3 have achieved stable populations on their homeworlds. 1 has expanded to exactly 11 systems and stopped there, content with their territory. Sarah felt a cold chill that had nothing to do with the station's recycled air. And humans? Humans have colonized over 300 systems in less than 2 centuries. You terraform hostile worlds, survive in environments that should kill you, and somehow thrive in conditions that would break other species. You are an anomaly. The research station Endeavour was humanity's furthest outpost, built on the edge of the void sector where no other species dared to venture. They had been studying the strange energy readings that came from the dark space beyond when the Kethvar found them. Sarah realized this wasn't a random encounter. These aliens had been hunting humans specifically. "So you're what? Galactic pest control?" Sarah asked. The Kethvar stopped pacing and turned those four eyes directly on her. "We maintain balance, we preserve order. Your species threatens that order simply by existing." Dr. Martinez had managed to work one hand partially free from his restraints. Sarah could see him slowly reaching for something in his pocket. Probably his emergency beacon, though she doubted it would work through whatever technology was jamming their communications. "You want to know what makes humans different?" Sarah said, drawing the alien's attention back to her. "It's not our technology or our weapons or our ships." "Then enlighten us." Sarah smiled, and for the first time since the aliens had boarded, she felt truly calm. "It's that we never give up. Ever. No matter how bad things get, no matter how impossible, the odds humans always find a way to fight back." The Kethvar leader made a sound that might have been laughter. "Admirable sentiment, but ultimately futile. You are restrained, your crew is captured, your weapons are disabled, and your ship's communication systems are jammed. How exactly do you plan to fight back? Who says I haven't already started?" The alien leaned closer, pressing the plasma rifle harder against her temple. The metal was cold against her skin, but Sarah didn't flinch. "Explain." "You made 3 mistakes," Sarah said conversationally. "First, you assumed that because I'm the commander, I'm the most dangerous person on this ship. Second, you thought that restraining our hands would stop us from fighting. And third, you believed that jamming our communications would prevent us from calling for help." The Kethvar's eyes flared brighter. "Your communications are completely blocked. We have verified this." "You blocked our standard communication arrays," Sarah agreed. "But every human military vessel has backup systems. Systems that don't use radio waves or quantum entanglement. Systems that use something much more primitive and much harder to detect." Behind the alien, Dr. Martinez had successfully activated the emergency beacon hidden in his jacket. It wasn't a communication device in any traditional sense. Instead, it sent out a series of low-frequency pulses through the station's hull, a pattern that would be picked up by any human vessel within 50 light-years. It was old technology, based on ancient Earth maritime distress signals, and most aliens had never encountered anything like it. The Kethvar spun around just as the beacon began its rhythmic pulsing. "What is that device?" "Insurance," Sarah said. The alien pointed his weapon at Dr. Martinez. "Disable it immediately." "Can't," Martinez said with a grin. "Once it's activated, it runs for 12 hours or until it receives a confirmation signal. And Commander, I should mention that I managed to set it to Priority Alpha." Sarah's smile widened. Priority Alpha meant imminent threat to human civilians. Any military vessel receiving that signal was required to respond with maximum force. The Kethvar had just painted a very large target on themselves. The alien leader turned back to Sarah, his metal skin now cycling rapidly through different colors. "You think your reinforcements can save you? By the time they arrive, you will all be dead." "Maybe," Sarah said. "But now you can't just make us disappear quietly. Now they'll know what happened here. They'll know about you." For the first time since the boarding began, she saw something that might have been uncertainty in those diamond eyes. The Kethvar had been operating in secret, picking off isolated human outposts without leaving traces. But the beacon changed everything. Soon, the entire human fleet would know about the threat. The alien pressed the plasma rifle against her head so hard it left a mark. "Then we will simply have to ensure there are no survivors to tell the tale." "Good luck with that," Sarah said quietly. "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into."